Devlin, Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Auckland War. It's a hell of a show today. News, views, interviews, rack-packed and stacked. So many issues. We're the only truly independent daily radio sports show in the country. So much to squeeze in on the show. It's 1 till 4 live on the platform every afternoon, including some of in the podcast today. The big NZR vote where the Provincial Unions said P2 and gave the finger to the Pilkington Review. The official axing of the Rebels as a Super Rugby franchise. Auckland City Council voting on what 2 new stadium proposals that they'll toss onto the grade admin email tree, never-ending meeting merry-go-round quicksand that is every single council in the world. Auckland FC unveiling their first 4 players of the new franchise side. All of that to cover. There's going to be another Usyk versus Fury fight. Eels versus Sharks tonight. We begin the show the same way every single day. Tablets in hand, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. So let me just walk us gently through what's going to happen with this Auckland Stadium thing today. Let us go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Oh boy, another round. Another day, another council vote about another debate, about another meeting into another national stadium proposal for downtown Auckland. 4 different options put up this time, 2 rejected out of sight. Comes down to a choice between a revamped Eden Park with a roof on top or this $1 billion plan to build a brand new purpose-built arena and precinct and hotel and all the bells and whistles of what would be called Key Park. So today, the choice made between the 2. Not to start building, though. No, as Amy Winehouse once sang. What happens now is we proceed to the feasibility stage. So, hang on. These proposals are already extensive. They're thoroughly researched. They're costed, yes. They're projected, yes. Hundreds of hours, tens of thousands of dollars spent, dozens of expert opinions and meetings and phone calls, Zoom calls, and page after page after page of potential plans rewritten, reworked, argued about, agreed upon, and then presented at council to be either rejected or accepted. One gets the go, one gets gone. And then we press pause. We put it all to one side. Again, until another round of committees gets formed to consider what's been initially rubber-stamped but now needs more time, more research, more meetings, more costings, more assessment, all wrapped up under the umbrella called feasibility. A whole lot of elected councillors alongside council experts deciding whether the financial engineering and logistical expertise of those behind the winning proposal is actually workable, possible, and as they say, ultimately feasible. Then in another 9 months, that's the estimated amount of time it's going to take, another 9 months after that study is completed, we'll get a decision on whether or not they will actually proceed. Maybe. Because who knows by then what other roadblock obstacles will be in place, including ownership of land, resource consents. Will the important National Infrastructure Project Bypass Bill be law by then? Who knows? And if all that is all go, then another round of talks begin about how it actually might go ahead, the actual practicality of getting the building done. So whatever gets decided today is only that. It's an idea, like every other idea before it that makes good headlines, but now goes back into this huge council quicksand called timelines. Nothing gets built. No work will actually begin. This is only just the beginning of another year at least of council admin.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Where to start? There's actually a lot going on today. There's actually too much going on, Martin. Is it fair to say?
No such thing as too much news, mate.
Yes, it is when you're setting up a radio show. I'm trying to set one up. All right, I'll start off with the Melbourne Rebels. The players of such a struggling Australian Super Rugby franchise have been told by Rugby Australia that they will be axed from the Super Rugby competition. Big news coming out of Australia, news that we expected to happen regardless of the fact the Rebels are actually having a decent season by comparison to what they've endured in the past. Just no money. They've been in voluntary, liquidation, voluntary receivership, voluntary something, voluntary, what's the word?
Please give donations.
Yeah, that one. Since January. All right, the provincial unions have rejected New Zealand Rugby's proposed governance reform and instead passed their own watered-down version. If you remember, there was Proposal 1 and Proposal 2. They were very similar, pretty much calling for a fully independent board, the difference being that Proposal 2, 3 members of the board had to have had experience running a provincial union. So that one is one. Auckland FC have unveiled their first 4 signings, those signings being winger Jesse Randall, midfielder Cam Howson, goalkeeper Michael Vowd and defender Francis De Vries. They were announced at Silo Park in downtown Auckland this morning. The club, of course, joining the A-League from next season. Next season, I believe, getting underway in October later this year. The A-League season usually begins in October of every year, so I'm guessing that's when it's starting. Anyway, those 4 names, when I read them out, if you said who, don't worry. I think most of football fans of this country probably did that as well.
Yeah, and fair enough.
Not, yeah,
they just don't know who these guys are. And none of them have played A-League, as you said. Yeah, so, I mean, they're all either former All Whites or are All Whites or Ollie All Whites, which is the under-23 side.
Ollie Whites, yeah.
Good young players.
Yeah,
but
nothing against them.
This is how you build a franchise up.
How you build a franchise. How many players have come through the Phoenix in the last how many years that we've gone, who? And then they've turned out to be a really good player.
Most of this year's team to be
Well, I tell you what, not just the players, their coaches as well. When Ufuk took over, who?
There you go.
When Chiefy took over, criminal charges against the world's best male golfer, Scotty Scheffler, have been dismissed. If you remember, Scheffler was arrested and handcuffed in Louisville during the PGA Championship and was charged with a felony for assaulting a police officer with his vehicle, along with 3 misdemeanors. Really strange story when that came out. However, those charges have been dropped, as I say. Here's a very interesting story, if we can circle back to Australian rugby for a second, involving Alex Hodgman, an All Black, who played 4 tests in 2020 under Ian Foster, hasn't played since. He has been playing for the Reds this year in Super Rugby, used to play for the Blues. He seems to be in line for a Wallabies call-up. He will be eligible to play for Australia this year in rugby, that being thanks to his father, who was born in Australia, so he passes those sort of rules. And it's been over 3 years since he last played international rugby for another team, so all going to plan. With his form being pretty damn good this year, Joe Schmidt's going to select Alex Hodgman and the Wallabies. Well, good on them. They need more good players. Back to that Melbourne Rebels story, by the way. Voluntary administration was the term I was looking for. The Rebels have been in voluntary administration since January, with debts owed to creditors exceeding $23 million, including an $11.5 million debt to the tax office. Jeez. What a sorry state of affairs for them. French Open, any major results? Defending champion in the women's singles draw, that is Iga Swiatek, prevailing in what has been described as a titanic duel with Naomi Osaka. Osaka, who really hasn't done much since she stepped away from tennis, then came back, hasn't really done much since. You always wonder if, I don't know, mentally she's there, not to sound too rude. She's obviously, talked about her mental health struggles with the sport, took a break, came back. Obviously we want to see her back to her best, but since she has returned, Naomi Osaka, just results haven't quite gone her way. So wanting her to be back at her best, but hasn't really been there for a while. Anyway, she's out of the tournament. Iga Swiatek knocking her out. The men's singles, Carlos Alcaraz winning in 4 sets in his second round match, as did Stefanos Tsitsipas. He won a game. Novak Djokovic winning in straight sets as well. Martin's favourite player, Thanasi Kokkinakis, winning. Taylor Fritz winning. And the women's singles draw, Sophia Kenin advancing. Paula Badosa as well. Victoria Azarenka. Madison Keys, among many, many others. Usyk Fury, round 2. The rematch of the heavyweight fight, of course. Usyk beating Fury just a couple of weeks ago to be the undisputed champion, heavyweight champion of boxing in the world. A rematch has been scheduled for December in Saudi Arabia. What a shock, it's in Saudi Arabia again. Kiwi runner James Preston has kept the memorable week by being named to the New Zealand team for the Paris Olympics. Great news. Just 2 days after breaking Sir Peter Snell's long-standing 800-metre record, Preston has been added to the athletics contingent to head to France in July. Really good news there for James Preston. And for the time being, Martin, that is what is making news.
Devlin.
That is a disgusting act.
The platform.
Rob Nichol, RPA boss. You've heard a lot from him in the last couple of weeks. Put the hammer down a week or so ago before this crucial vote at NZR HQ today and said, hey, if it doesn't go our way, well, what we're going to do is we're going to break away. Well, is that still the case? It sounded like a threat at the time that Nichol and the professional players, all 250 of them, are going to form another entity alongside whatever is left of NZR, and they're going to run the professional game in this country. Is that going to happen? What is going to happen? Rob Nichol on the show. Rob, Proposal 1, which is the one you wanted rejected, what does it mean?
Well, I think it's just a great opportunity lost, unfortunately. The expert panel did a great job of laying out the recommendations that the game needed to implement perfectly. Those recommendations had support from New Zealand Rugby themselves, New Zealand Rugby Commercial, the Super Rugby clubs, the Māori Rugby Board, the NZR and a really good group of provincial unions. And, dare I say it, a large number of commentators in the public domain. But unfortunately, it hasn't carried the day, and we've ended up with, I suppose, a proposal which the experts have labelled status quo or worse. So not a great outcome for the game. It's just a real pity that the opportunity wasn't taken.
What happens now with you, though? Because you've already threatened that, hey, you're going to break away and the players are going to form another organisation to run the professional side of the game. Is that going to happen?
No, well, just to be clear on that, we didn't threaten anything. We just told everyone what we would do up front, which is what's important in our world, is to be honest and up front. And that's what we'll go about doing. We will sit down, obviously, with New Zealand Rugby, with the Super Rugby clubs, with New Zealand Rugby Commercial, and say, okay, well, given this landscape and given that we have an NZR board constituted the way it is, how are we going to work together and how are we going to run the professional game? And in our view, and we've been upfront about this, is we need to set up a tribunal involving those parties and come up with a framework under which key decisions are going to be made and the professional game flourishes. So nothing changes in that respect. We know exactly what we're about to do, and we'll do that through the bargaining and negotiation process that we've been through many times before. It's just that we now know that's going to be not straightforward. It's going to be hard work, but we'll get there.
Rob, where's your financials coming from? Who's backing you on this? Because if you're going to form a brand new organisation, that's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. Where does that money come from?
No, just to be clear, Marty, we talked about a tribunal. So let me take it away from New Zealand Rugby context. If we jump into England, they already have a professional game board. Okay, it's not a separate entity. It's not a separate organisation. It's a body set up that involves the RFU, the clubs and the players, and they focus in on professional rugby and how they're going to work together to govern it. It's a similar model in France, and the sort of models in other professional sports environments that also have community and amateur games around the world. So we're not talking about necessarily, unless all the stakeholders decided we needed to incorporate another body, but it's probably the last thing we need in New Zealand Rugby at the moment. What we're talking about is a tribunal that is set up to put a real focus on the professional game and get us a lot more efficient and effective in terms of delivering for the overall game. That's what we're talking about, and it needs to involve the key stakeholders in the game, which includes New Zealand Rugby, which we will view as a body that is set up to govern for PUs on behalf of PUs, which is absolutely fine. That's just the lay of the land, and we'll move forward from that basis. But there's a bit of water to go under the bridge. There's some pretty big implications on some of the stakeholders under Proposal 2. And it'll be interesting to see how they react over the coming days.
Rob Nichol from the RPA is with us. Is there any thought or possibility of live rugby, that you could take these players and that could be the end of what we know of actual professional rugby, the franchise system in New Zealand, the All Blacks and everything else, that it could end up being based out of the Middle East, something like that?
No, not at all. Let's just back up the farm here. There is no group more committed to the community and rugby in this country than the professional players. And I think if you look at our actions over the last 3 or 4 years, everything has been about, whether you look at the Silver Lake situation, whether you look at this situation, this was not our recommendations. This was not us versus the provinces or us versus New Zealand Rugby. We committed to that process of the governance review just like every stakeholder, because we wanted a fit-for-purpose, best practice governance model for the game in this country. We wanted 9 independent directors that took decisions on behalf of the game in this country in the best interests of the game in this country, not in the best interests of the players, not in the best interests of the provinces, not in the best interests of Māori rugby, and the best interests of the game. And we still desperately want to see that. And we may well see it. I wouldn't rule it out, to be honest, despite today's result, because we all know, frankly, the vast majority of New Zealanders know that's the right way forward. What's happened today is not that, it's something else, but I suspect we will actually eventually get there. That's what we've been pushing for. We're not pushing our own barrow here. We actually believe that professional players will flourish under an independent board making those kind of decisions in the best interest of the game. But so, most importantly, will the community game and that connection to the community and our ability to keep the pathways for coaches and players who want to go into the professional side of the game here and alive in New Zealand. That's why we've been doing all this. The last thing we want to do is to have to see our players go overseas to pursue professional rugby. That's like basketball and football, etc. That is the worst possible outcome for rugby in this country, in our view. Like, we want to keep that connection. That's what we have been working hard to try and achieve. And we'll continue to work hard to try and achieve that.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Greg Martin, every single Thursday on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Marto, Triple M Breakfast host out of Brisbane. Talking today about the Melbourne Rebels, talking about his Reds last round of Super Rugby, state of origin. And when a man's been married for 30-something years and he's left on his own for a couple of weeks, where does he go? What does he eat? Greg Martin. You have been on your own for a week and Mrs. Marto is away. You live next to the pub. How many times have you been there?
I went 4 days in a row, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I gave it a break. Last night, being Wednesday, I found myself I even recorded myself for radio this morning, how pathetic it was. I was leaning on the wall of a tobacco shop while I waited for my kebab order, because that's closer to the pub's 80 metres away. The kebab shop's 50. I have not cooked a meal it's now going on 8 days. And I bring the kebab or fish and chips home, eat on a paper plate, and just put them in the bin. Haven't made the bed for a week. I've been clipping my toenails in the dining room table. It's been a good week. It's been a great week. I've been wearing underpants only inside the house.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, this is called man heaven, isn't it? Are we allowed to say that out loud?
No, you got to admit. The wife doesn't listen to you. I was going to say I've been saying on Triple M because she's been checking podcasts to see if I'll be bagging her.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay.
So no, on Brisbane radio, I've been so lonely. But,
desperate. I mean, I'm just sitting there by myself at night. I don't know what to do. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Anyway, all good.
Not for the Rebels, though, mate. A couple of your blokes, Herbert and War, in there, dishing out the bad news. The timing couldn't be worse because they're on the plane later today to go to Fiji in a very important last round match, mate.
All right. Yes, I know it's not funny, but at 10 a.m. the meeting was called, and Daniel Herbert, chairman of Australian Rugby, Phil War, CEO, both former great Wallabies, they called the meeting at 10. Check-in at the airport is 11:45, so it'll be a swift blow. The meeting was very swift to tell them they already knew there's no future for them next year unless they can raise some money, and no one's been able to do that because no one's going to miss the Rebels. No one. I used to have to go down there every second Saturday and call their games, and there'd be 8,000 people there. You're trying to kick off with it's been going for years now in a mad AFL place. There were mainly Kiwis were the only ones going to watch their games. So, no, mate, it's a waste of money. And Australian Rugby, as you know, is in a dire financial position, and they had to pull the trigger.
Well, look, I mean, we've been reflecting all week on your comments last week about you sitting there on that side of the Tasman going, hang on a second. You know, rugby's the fifth or sixth or seventh sport in Australia. It's in a shambles. You know, if we can't get rugby organised in New Zealand, then what hope has anyone in the world got, right? Well, I can tell you today that the Provincial Unions rejected this new proposal. They voted to retain the power that they have, and they voted to retain the control that they have over New Zealand rugby, which means now Rob Nichol and the RPA are in this position where they threatened that they would break away and form another organisation to run the joint. So that's where we sit right now.
So nothing's been announced. No, just play. You're entertainers. Just try to entertain people despite what the referees want to slow the game down. It won't happen. God blimey. But I just wish the big global picture is those silly old men over in Ireland who run the game of international rugby would realise what sort of battle we've got down here. South Africa seems to be okay, but New Zealand and Australia is in a real battle for eyeballs, and we can't keep doing it while they're forcing these slowing down of the game rules on us. I don't know, mate. Have you got an answer?
No, I mean, I'm just still dumbfounded at the judiciary, which had Fisa Tanu and Stefan Tablanche on, and gave Tupu Tupu a 3-week ban for that tackle on Tupu Vai, where Vai obviously, clearly, deliberately ducks down into that tackle, and he's been... Yeah, he's over, and then you get the Luke Jacobson thing, right, where he's flapping around like a salmon on a bloody riverbank, and the referee's saying, you made no effort to break free. Well, I'm looking at it, mate. You're trying, but you've got 2 Hurricanes players lying on you.
You ask all the players. So who are they trying to protect it from? Are they trying to protect it for the next generation? But every single player is taking money. Okay, even club rugby where you're not taking money. Everybody understands it's a violent, unpredictable, brutal contact sport. That's one of the reasons we play it. That used to be the reason people would watch it, because it was unpredictable. But now they're trying to protect. Who are they trying to protect the players from? Lawyers is the answer, and you won't have a game, so it won't matter anymore if you keep on going like this.
Last round of Super Rugby, mate. So how does it all unfold? You're playing away the Waratahs. It doesn't really matter because you can't really change your position in the table. Who finishes one?
Still important.
Who finishes 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or what order do they finish, though? So, the Hurricanes have got the Highlanders. If they get a bonus point, the Blues will have to beat the Chiefs with a bonus point. If the Chiefs beat the Blues, the Brumbies could beat the Force and get a second spot, which would mean that they would actually host a semi-final. How's it going to end?
Well, I would have thought that. Well, obviously the Hurricanes first. Blues won't beat the Blues won't score. Oh God, they might. I don't know. Yeah, they might, and the Brumbies will do that. No, I don't care, because all I'm thinking about is the Reds. They'll finish 5th, and it doesn't really matter. Then we'll go over and beat the Chiefs next week. Can I just tell you a wonderful segment on our own radio show here in Brisbane this morning? A bloke rang up at one stage, and while he was talking, he went. He was having a durry. Well, we thought he was having a durry while he was speaking to us. It was quite clear that he'd stopped down to have a drag on his cigarette, which not many people smoke anymore. So we ran a segment. Was that a cigarette? Was that vaping or smoking? And then we got people who were vaping and smoking, and we tried to this is really what we did on radio. All right, the third bloke that rang up, so we picked the first one. Yeah, oh, you're smoking a ciggy. Oh, yeah, you got me. All right, next one. Oh, you're smoking a vape. The third guy that rang up put the phone to his bum and did a fart. Oh,
you just see. This is what music. This is the joy of music radio, isn't it? See that they're right there. You can't buy that.
That's why we're the number 1 station in Brisbane, because we do live farting on air. That's class.
Finally, the T20 World Cup kicks off this weekend. Is anyone other than Australia going to win it?
When's that on?
This weekend it kicks off. So, exactly. There you go. I walked into that, didn't I?
I bet you haven't seen this one. No, so the Australians had a warm-up game against Namibia. Yes, we won by 7 wickets. Who cares? In Trinidad. But, all right, not everyone has turned up since the IPL. We only had 9 of the players from the squad turned up in Trinidad. Oh, we're short of players. Can we play our 2? Because they've taken 2 non-playing reserves, okay, if someone gets injured. No, you can't use them. Our coaching staff, including a 49-year-old Brad Hodge, had to play for Australia. So the coaching staff were allowed to play. Andrew McDonald, the coach, he's 43. He had to play. Who else? Oh, the chief of selectors, George Bailey, former middle order batsman. We had to play our 4 coaching staff because they wouldn't let us play. So cricket, wow, spectacular.
The Tight 5.
5 separate sporting topics, Lachlan, roughly a minute or so on each. And when the bell goes, we'll go on to the next topic, the vote. What happens, and were you surprised at all by it? Eels Sharks tonight. Pickett, can the Eels win and salvage their season? Because they're 3-8, and if they lose this one, the season is gone. Scheffler, all charges dropped. No surprise at all there, ladies and gentlemen. This was a beat-up from the very beginning. It's done. Goodbye, the Rebels. That is the end of that franchise. What is the future of Super Rugby now? It's going to be Super 11. It's never been Super 11. That's about the only number out of the top 30 that, if you start at 0, go to 30, they haven't chosen yet. So it's going to be a fresh start, Lachlan. Auckland FC we can talk about. Usyk Fury we could talk about. The vote, though, to kick it off with. Now, we've done a fair bit on the show on this in the last couple of weeks. Are you surprised at all? Now, the Provincial Unions said P2?
No, because the Provincial Unions are voting, aren't they?
That's it.
The 90 votes are shared among the Provincial Unions. So it's, hey, unions, you can either kick yourselves to the curb or have some of you involved.
This is democracy in front of us. And
it's democracy. It is democracy, but you could have... This is
they can vote how they want.
This is like giving Donald Trump at the the 2020 election. All right, Trump, the people have voted. Now you can choose to either honour their vote or just stay on as president. And you'd be like, well, what do you think he would pick?
Well,
it's the same sort of thing.
Okay, so the way it works, the 27 unions end up with about 90 votes, and those votes allocated on how many over 13-year-old teams you've got in your catchment area.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I mean, Auckland would be massive.
Well, Auckland gets 7 votes because they have the most, and it goes down to about, I think the least is 2. But the provincial unions own the game, run the game, and supposedly own New Zealand Rugby. Why would they vote themselves out of existence? I don't see that. And also, I don't believe that the proposal that was put up that said if they vote themselves out of existence, this is the way New Zealand Rugby is going to be run, is convincing anybody. I mean, this supposed magical, brilliant 9-person brains trust to be plucked from wherever that's going to run New Zealand Rugby. And what they don't want is they don't want people that are supposedly prejudiced because they work for provincial unions and have had their minds working on issues surrounding the amateur game, domestic game, grassroots game, club route. I mean, so none of those people, their views, their experience is valid, okay? But there's going to be these 9 magical names that are going to appear out of nowhere, these brilliant brains from all aspects and works of life of New Zealand that are going to go, I will help run, go over here, look at me, I'm going to run New Zealand Rugby. I've done this in my life. But have you played? No. Have you been an All Black? No. Have you worked at Provincial Rugby? No. Have you ever worked at a club? No.
Have you worked in New Zealand? No, I've got all this experience in
overseas,
London and Indonesia.
That's right, yeah. You know, and I'll be like, who's the guy, James, whatever he was from the Green Party. I've got a degree from Victoria University here.
Well, hold on, we just ran a background check. No, you don't.
No, you don't have a degree. So until a proposal is put up that says, hey, you know, whoever it is that's going to take over the New Zealand Rugby Board is going to be better than the lot that's there at the moment, or better than the provincial unions. I'm not convinced anyone's done that yet.
So the New Zealand Rugby Board has been so publicised and have almost become, not celebrities, but kind of in a sporting sense in New Zealand, mainly because over the last couple of years, the CEO tried to stab the All Blacks head coach in the back, and they tried to get rid of him. The board voted, and they then acted like, oh, you know, it was the media who was the reason why.
That was right last year.
Stuart Mitchell.
That was right.
Said,
Stuart Mitchell, that guy with the business acumen and the financial experience.
Figures to be pointed to the media for wanting Fossey
lost $80 million in the last 3 years of being in charge, you board members.
Well, this is the thing. The point of what I'm making is that, apart from that, I don't think the board of, we never hear about the board of New Zealand cricket. We never hear about the board of New Zealand football, the board of the ARL, or the NRL in Australia. The person at the front of the ship, the captain of the ship, is the CEO. He's the one who makes the decision. So at the end of the day, we can go through all of these meetings, these votes, all these selections of panels who then need to select another panel who then select, the board. None of it really matters. New Zealand Rugby is in the, excuse my French, well, I won't say that, but it's in the crapper because of decisions financially or a lack of innovation or innovative decisions made by Mark Robinson and people in just below him in similar sort of leadership positions. Until they are gone, who on the board doesn't really matter because they don't have a hands-on day-to-day running of the NZR.
That's right. And all of those people on the board, what is their number one focus in life is to remain on that board.
And take advantage of all the luxuries.
And we saw them all at the World Cup in their corporate boxes, hanging around with all the fancy-dancy actors and everything else, getting limousine rides and 5-star and not paying for a single cent. Why would you give that up? Scotty Scheffler, all charges dropped. No surprise at all here. This was always going to happen. The fact that he was even put in cuffs, put in a prison jumpsuit, taken downtown, booked, arraigned, and everything else, that the guy should whack a huge lawsuit at the Kentucky police for this. What did he actually do? Because whatever he did, they can't get a prosecution on. Okay? That's why they've dropped it. Because the chief prosecutor has said to them, listen, you can't get this through court. This guy's not going to be convicted. Otherwise, they would press go on it. So whatever they charged him with, abrasions to the cop and knocking him over and assault this and all of that, the guy's camera, his body cam wasn't switched on for a start. So he's been disciplined for that. And it's quite clear. And I watched this unfold live at the time, and there were so many cars doing what they accused his car of doing, of going on the wrong side of the road. It all looks so bloody confusing, even on the TV. Which way are the cars meant to be going here? There's cars coming this way, there's cars driving the other way when they shouldn't be. And quite obviously what happened is he did something wrong, but he didn't do it maybe deliberately, or if he did do it, he didn't know.
Well, if he did do it, he wasn't the only bloody one who did it.
That's it. And so, whoever the cop was is trying to parade a shot tiger in front of the public is what he was doing, wasn't he?
Well, who was...
Trying to make a name for himself.
Well, no, more so probably trying to get something out of it. Who was the bloke who got kicked by Dennis Rodman and then really sold it on
the cameraman. God. I mean, he's wriggling around like,
Writhing in pain.
He was, and he ended up getting a cash check out of the end of it. Okay, so Scheffler charges drop. The Rebels dumped by Rugby Australia. Brett McKay is going to join us to talk about this. There's a couple of aspects I just want to point out to you people. Just in case you had full empathy for the Rebels and this proposal put together by a board of trustees or a consortium or whatever to Rugby Australia, where they said, listen, the $20 million debt, we've got that covered, okay? Two things. None of those consortium members would allow their names to be public. So Rugby Australia didn't know who any of them were. Point number two. There were no financial documents or evidence of any kind provided, actual numbers that said, this is the money we've got backing us, this is how we're going to repay that debt or resolve that debt. So Rugby Australia is sitting there with a blank piece of paper in front of them going, we can't see who the people are and we can't see where the money is. But we're just going to rely on your word. There's a sign called consortium on the wall. There's no pictures underneath it and there's no documentation underneath it, but we're just going to rely on you and your word that you've got the money and this is all going to be good. Well, how in hell, if you're Rugby Australia, can you do anything other than say no? No. You're not even prepared to let us know who you are. So who are we dealing with?
Well, did they even have any money in the first place? Did they even have this security blanket on them?
This could be that guy that went to the West Indies and said he was going to buy one-day cricket. Remember that guy?
No.
Oh, there's a guy who arrived at Old Trafford juggling a football on the pitch about 20 years ago who was going to buy Manchester United. And he was a con artist as well, mate.
Well, it's a bit like Hamish McLennan when he said, we've already earned $100 million from the Lions tour.
That's it, yeah.
Oh, where's the money, Hamish? Oh, it's under my mattress.
Yeah.
It's like, can we look at your mattress? No.
Eels Sharks tonight.
Who have I got? I got the Eels.
Same.
It's Eels, not Sharks. Oh, it is Sharks.
Yeah, Eels Sharks.
I thought they were playing the Dogs.
Eels
Who are the
Sharks
Dogs
tonight.
playing?
Dogs.
Dogs have got the Knights.
Dogs got the Knights.
I keep thinking the Eels and the Dogs play each other. Apologies. Eels, Sharks. No, Sharks are missing a couple of guys. New halves combo. Eels got some players back. I don't think Parramatta are as bad as what the last
3-8.
No, but I don't think they're as bad as what the last month.
They've lost 5 in a row.
I don't think they're as bad as the last month suggests. They still have talent. And Big Bob, you'll love me saying this because I don't really rate them to an extent. I've never really been a fan of Mitchell Moses, more so an attitude thing than an actual skill level thing. But they do still have talent that can win games. And the Sharks are short-handed. I think they are absolutely bruised after last week. I think they're seriously dragging their bodies along, feeling just so, emotionally under the weather. Does that make sense? Their egos have been bruised. I think that this, I don't think it'll be a slide, but no, I'm going on a bit here, but I think, Parramatta, absolutely, I'm backing them.
Martin says, Jamie, the Provincial Unions own New Zealand Rugby and they've been told they can't have a say in the governance of it. Well, what business works that way? And Martin, what's the plan with the Super Round if Melbourne are out? Damn good question. Yeah. We'll ask Brett McKay that next. How can you have the Super Round in Melbourne if you don't have a Melbourne team? Final topic, Auckland AFC. 4 players unveiled today. I think it's easy to be cynical and say, well, who are these players? And it's a fair question because it's kind of like none of them.
It's you like when Ralph Rangnick took over Man United.
Yeah.
Difference is he was
unless
rubbish,
you really know your local football and your local players, you can research all these players. They're all absolute legit in terms of being All Whites internationals or playing for the under 23 All White side, and they've been playing domestic football, a lot of them. But this is, I think, what Auckland AFC are going to do. They've got 5 overseas spots available to them in their squad. But I think they're trying to make that the bulk of this side is going to come from local talent, just like the Phoenix have done. So I applaud them on that. David Moffett is a former NZR CEO and one of the very few outspoken former administration officials that has ever worked for New Zealand Rugby. He runs his eye over what he thinks happened today and what the eventual outcome will be for the future of the whole game in this country. Moffett. Are you surprised at all by the provincial unions doing what they've done?
No, not at all. In actual fact, I think that Rob Nichol's time has come and gone, and I think he should be replaced, perhaps with somebody like Conrad Smith. I mean, the guy has obviously got a little bit of power has gone to his head, and the threats that he was making last week were an absolute disgrace, and I don't think he should be leading that organisation any longer because he will just lead it into the wilderness.
He's saying that he didn't threaten anything. He just said he stated what they were going to do. So that means that if he follows through with that, I mean, look, I know it's just words, it's semantics, isn't it? I mean, it sounded like a threat to everyone else that read those comments. If this doesn't happen, we're going to do this. That's by definition a threat. So what happens now, though? I mean, are we stuck in this quagmire, or are the provincial unions just going to... No?
No, we're not. The provincial rugby unions have resisted Nichol's attempt to bully them into something that they have their right is to, the democratic right is to actually consider the options and vote the way they want to vote. They're not going to vote the way that Nichols wants them to vote, because who is he? I mean, he doesn't own New Zealand Rugby. You know, he represents the players. And he has put the players in a really bad position by coming out in what he said last week. And he has got to go. But here's something else, mate. The entire board has now got to go and take the chief executive with them, because this is yet another unseemly incident on top of many recently. And let me just make this point as well. The board at the moment, as I understand it, is an actual fact a board with more independence than representatives from the provincial rugby unions. And look what a shambles they've made of it. So it's not a panacea for guys like Nichol, who's never run a rugby union, to stand up and say, we just need 9 independents, because they all know what they're doing, which is absolute bullshit, mate. Absolute bullshit. I've had enough experience with independents coming in. They put all of their knowledge and all of their expertise to one side. When they get involved in sport, they become embroiled in the whole, opportunity to strut the stage as a board member of New Zealand Rugby or whatever rugby union it is, and they don't make right decisions. You need people from the sport to actually hold these people back and say, listen, you have to understand that rugby is too much of a sport to be a business and too much of a business to be a sport. And if you don't understand that, that's why they get into trouble.
David, do you think that it could actually separate here, though, under an umbrella, but that the professional side of it, because things have changed demonstrably since 1996, and it's arguable as to whether club rugby drives the elite level of the game anymore. So do you think that there is scope there to actually separate the professional side of the game from the amateur game, but still have it run by the same entity?
That's been tried in other unions. More recently, Welsh Rugby, which has got themselves into an incredible tangle. It has been tried in other unions. It doesn't work. But let's face it, they've only got the provincial rugby unions will only have 3 board members. So what are they worried about? You know, they need their expertise. And for anybody to suggest that in all of the 25, 27 provincial rugby unions, there aren't 3 people with the talent and the ability to sit on the New Zealand Rugby Board, then those guys are kidding themselves. And I never agreed with the Pilkington report, and I still don't agree with it. It was too much of a bite to take at it. I think that he gave them, and I don't know whether it's right or not, but I think he gave them what they were looking for. And the provincial rugby unions today have said, no, thank you. We don't want that. We will vote. And we will vote as we're entitled to on what we think should happen. They've done it. Now, I can tell you now, if Nichol continues down his road to take them somewhere else, I'll get onto that in a minute, then he will be responsible for trashing 120 plus years or whatever it is, goodwill that this nation has with the All Blacks.
All right, you said you had something else as well. What was that?
Yeah. So we need to be aware that there's a lot of noise around at the moment of we're all aware of Live Golf and what they've done in the golf sphere. There's a lot of talk at the moment about setting up an organisation called Live Rugby. Now, it may well be that that's where he thinks that he will take a team of players. He won't be able to call them the All Blacks. And I have to tell you that if they did that, they would lose the support. And
hadn't
the
it been
trust
tried before? There
of
was,
the
I mean,
New Zealand
1995 and World Rugby tried to do that, and the players themselves,
Yeah, I know.
just all said, no, that we don't actually want that. I mean, the All Blacks is the brand, isn't it? Going back to just how to govern the game from here. So just for the layperson, what exactly happens apart from nothing? Is this just the status quo and we continue on? Because if that's the case, as you say, you've got a divide then between the provincial unions and the executive, Mark Robinson and his cronies who run the game. I mean, these two sides are just diametrically opposed at the moment.
Get rid of them. Get rid of the board. Get rid of Robinson, because they're not doing the right thing by the game as a whole. They are only interested, from what I can see, at the elite end of the game. And guess what? These elite players don't come from nowhere. They come from the grassroots. Every single one of them started playing rugby at age 4 or 5 or whatever for their local club, and then they're nurtured, and then they go through, and they don't just appear out of thin air and say, oh, I'm a professional rugby player now. And this is yet another example of what professional rugby has done to the game as a whole, mate. It has a lot to answer for. But I think that the provincial rugby unions have stood up to this rather crass suggestion that this guy will take the players somewhere else. Go and do it. My view is, okay, off you go. You go and do it and see what happens. Because, the public are more interested in the All Black brand than they are some guy like him threatening to take the players somewhere else. And I'm not sure, did he get 100% support from the players on this before he made those comments? I don't know. Has he said whether he did or not?
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. The Blues can finish top of the tree, but they got to have a bonus point win against the Chiefs to absolutely confirm that this weekend. Harry Plummer, first 5 for the Blues this year, has had a hell of a season, probably his best ever season. All Black honours? What do you reckon? Harry Plummer on the program. Various reports saying that there's a very honest team meeting after losing to the Crusaders. Were you shocked by that result as a team?
Yeah, it was a very, very honest sort of review. I don't think shock's the right word. I think if you're going down to Christchurch as a Blues player, regardless of the position that they're in, and think it's going to be an easy game, you're kidding yourself. And we had a good prep week, and we knew what was coming, and we just didn't play our best game of footy, and they played a good style of footy, and nullified us a little bit in some of the aspects of what has worked for us in previous weeks. So no, we weren't surprised at all. We were disappointed, absolutely. We pride ourselves on a better performance than that, and we've had a good week this week, looking in the mirror and seeing what we can work on come the Chiefs, because that's a different battle as well.
Yeah, look, because, before that, you'd put the Highlanders away, 47 points on them, which was the hell of a result. And then you'd beaten the Hurricanes, and that was a fantastic game as well. So, this is what a competition does. Nobody's gone through unscathed. And it's amazing when you look at the points table at the moment, mate, that there's 3 of you with exactly the same record.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of Super Rugby, We knew that there was never going to be any easy games, and there hasn't been any easy games. And you're right, every team's just as desperate as the next to win. And, I mean, we can just see that with how many spots and, nullifying positions are coming down in the very last round of the season. So, we've got one clear focus, and that's to finish top. And, we want to win really well against the Chiefs, but we need to, clue into what our game is and execute that to, have a chance to do that.
Are you going to be, I don't know whether you've got TVs on in there, are you going to be watching this Hurricanes game versus the Highlanders? Because you're going to need to know that result, because you've got to do what they do. If they win and they win with a bonus point, you've got to do the same.
Oh, to be honest, mate, we can't control any of it. It's as much as, you're right, you say that, but we're not basing on how we want to play on what that game eventuates to, So we want to win, and if we know that if we can win and win well, then, that'll put anything to bed. So we're very much internally focused this week and focusing on the Chiefs and how we can, try and take apart a really good team who will be hurting as well from a couple of losses. So, I don't think there's any focus on any results outside of ours at the moment.
Harry Plummer is with us, and the Blues play the Chiefs people Saturday night, 7:05, the chance to finish number 1, top of the table. Mate, you've been around a while. You're only 25. God, I'm amazed by that because I feel like you've been around a hell of a long time. You started playing for Auckland in 2017, the Blues in 2019. So you're one of the senior players, but you're only 25.
I feel older. Older, that's for sure. But no, yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be in this environment and the professional environment very early on. And I suppose that attributes to a lot of learnings that I've taken over the years, and whether that's personally or as a team. So, we've had a really good group of core players that have been together for 4 or 5 years now. And we're starting to see the fruits of the labour of trust and connections and whatnot. But like you say, we've still got a big job to do, and we're definitely looking forward to trying to get stuck in starting this week.
Harry, where do you prefer playing, mate? I know that you played a bit in the centre, a bit at second five, but your form at first five, as I started this chat, has been great all year. Where do you actually prefer?
Yeah, I came into the Blues as a 10, and I've really enjoyed 10. I like to be in control of a game plan and of a team, and I suppose what being at the Blues has gifted me is the opportunity to strengthen my knowledge of playing elsewhere and a few sort of strings to the bow of playing different positions at 12 and whatnot. And I think ultimately I still like to play 10 with the control that I can have, but depending on the coach and how you like to play in the game, 12's sort of become part of my repertoire as well. So I said this to another reporter there, I just want to be on the field, mate, like 1 to 15. If I've got any of those numbers on my back, then I'm happy. And being a part of such a special sort of team and special club is, never lost on me when I get to put the jersey on.
Higher honours. How do you feel when somebody like me or somebody else suggests you, my God, your name must be in there, Razor must be thinking about you? What do you think about chat like that?
Oh, I haven't really thought about it too much, mate. We're pretty, pretty tight unit at the Blues, and obviously getting some recognition for how I'm playing is really nice, but we're pretty clued up to the fact that, again, we haven't done anything, and our goal is always to win this thing, and we really want to do justice by that, and what that leads to is a lot of focus on ourselves and bettering our game and individual skill sets, but also what challenges we have coming up, i.e. the Chiefs and anyone further on than that. So yeah, I mean, whether there's chance or not, it's not really been in my thought process, if I'm honest, and I really just want to do well for the team and wherever that leads to.
Brett McKay joins us, rugbypass.com. He works for, used to be the Raw. And Brett, a couple of big things. We had the vote in New Zealand today. You know about that news. But the big news from your side is that the Melbourne Rebels are no more.
Yeah, that's right, Martin. G'day to you. It's days like this and these decisions are never easy to take. You can't really prepare yourself for them, and your feelings and your thoughts immediately go to the players and the coaches and the staff and their families and supporters and all that sort of stuff around the Melbourne Rebels, because it's a decision which financially probably makes sense, but it just cuts so deep for the individuals involved. And, already it's certainly been a case of, messages been flying back and forward, and, it's a tough day for the rugby community in Melbourne, no doubt about it.
What happens to those players? Are they just going to get added to the other Super Rugby squads, or will many of them go overseas? What?
Look, I think both of those scenarios are likely. There are a group of players who have contracts for 2025, and my understanding is that there had already been, discussions started in recent weeks to sort of work on Plan B, if you like, about where players might like to go. Rugby Australia can't force anyone to go anywhere, so that's going to be an interesting little development out of it. So, as much as it might make sense and it might sound easy to say, well, send half a dozen to the Force and send half a dozen to the Waratahs, and who needs a prop, who needs a fly half, et cetera, they can't actually force anyone to go anywhere they don't want to go. So the players that do have contracts will have options, but now that the Rebels aren't there, there will also be part of that says that if they can't find a suitable alternate arrangement for next year, then their options, will be to effectively cease the contract, and then they could look overseas if they wanted to. So, some players will stay put in Australia and will move to other teams, but I'm quite sure there will be other players who head overseas. But the players that are actually caught out in this are the guys who don't have contracts for next year. They were already probably having to work on Plan B and things like that. And I know that in some cases there were guys at the Rebels who had basically agreed to terms at the start of the year, and their contracts were even with Rugby Australia just awaiting sign-off or awaiting registration, if you like. And that never happened in some cases. So there's some guys who at the start of the year thought they were securing their futures, and they're really up in the air now.
Timing of it couldn't be any worse with the team flying out today to go and play the Druid.
No.
This is a side that hardly loses at home, especially in the afternoon in Lautoka, and they need that win. Otherwise, the Crusaders could slip past them on the outside. The Rebels qualify regardless, but you kind of wanted a real contest in this, and you just wonder what kind of motivation those players have. But having said that, was there a better time? Was it better to wait to during the finals? Because it's not an unexpected announcement.
No, there was certainly a feeling of inevitability about it, and yeah, that's the immediate question. Timing is terrible. They were literally heading to, or they are still heading to the airport in the next hour or two to fly to Fiji. When do you do it? I mean, what we didn't want, and I think what anyone wanted was for this to drag on, and for it to be, June, July, August before a decision's made. So a decision certainly had to be made sooner rather than later. Could it have waited another couple of weeks? Maybe. Maybe that's the other side to it. Even if they had made the decision clear behind this is what it was going to be, but then it would also be a matter of could they absolutely guarantee that information wouldn't get out at some point. So in some regards, if the decision was made this week, I think they probably had to do it. Could it have happened early in the week? Again, maybe that's the question that needs to be asked. But look, it's going to be a task now for the Rebels, isn't it? As you say, going to Fiji is never easy. And then they will play finals. They can't not finish inside the top 8. So they've got to try and get themselves up this weekend, which I have no doubt that they will be able to do that. And then they've got to try and get themselves in the right mindset for their maiden Super Rugby finals campaign.
Auckland, we're going to play What is More Chance of Happening. Yes! I present 2 scenarios. You tell me out of the 2 what is more chance of happening. Let's kick it off with a breakaway organisation involving Rob Nichol, the RPA, the Rugby Players Association, and New Zealand Rugby will be formed by the end of the year to run rugby in this country, or there will be another side added to Super Rugby to replace...
the first one. I think it'd be wild if they brought in another side. Super Rugby is a competition that has been fractured for a long time. It took them a while to get down to this 12-team format. For them to sit there and go...
Well, okay, no. It took a while for them to realise how much they had cocked it up and how much they needed to reverse and go back to the 12-team format. And that only happened because they really did cock it up. Okay, let's just people, you've got 12 teams. It's called Super 12. It's going really well, right? Okay, let's add another couple of teams to a Super 14. Yeah, that's still working. Let's add another team to it then, because we're getting really greedy now and we're really rubbing ourselves and we really think we know what we're doing. Super 15. So then it goes into 3 separate conferences, right? Then, just imagine being at a committee meeting at NZR HQ with the SANZAR officials and representatives there, and somebody says, you know what? I reckon we now go 18, 4 separate conferences, and there's got to be a team from each of those conferences naturally through to the final, and no one at that meeting was prepared to say, hey, no, I think this is a really bad idea. Look, you've got a goose, it's laying golden eggs. Why do you want to throttle the goose? And then Lachlan Moore puts his hand up and says, I'm sorry? Why are you so negative? Why are you always being so negative? We've got this great idea on top of the table here. Robbo's into it. It's fan-centric. It's fan engagement. The people will love it. We've gone from Super 12 to Super 18. It's going to work. And I'm sitting there going, but Lachlan, surely it's working now. Why are you trying to fix something that's not broke? Well, why are you so negative? And you can just feel the tension in the room as everyone kind of physically...
everyone turns around and goes, "Hey, he didn't come with me."
Everyone physically distance themselves. I don't work with him. I don't know who that guy is. He's not... He's
Can
not...
you stop being so negative, please?
What is more chance of happening then? There will be another Super Rugby side added to the competition to replace the Rebels. Or they will revise the finals format so that there won't be 8 teams out of 11 qualifying for the finals.
They surely have to do that.
Well, it's look, okay, everything about rugby we go, surely they can't be that stupid. Yeah. Surely they can't cock this one up. Surely the administrators have got to get this one right.
Yeah. I mean, you've got an 11-team competition where over 2/3 make the finals.
They've got to restructure this, don't they? They just simply have to.
It's easy. 6 teams.
6 teams. And the top 2 have a week off.
Yeah, because 4's too few, and it's probably not enough finals games given how long the regular season tends to be. You got to have 6.
Super 14 used to be a semi-finals only. In actual fact, all of Super Rugby, I think, has always only ever been, apart from now.
Yeah, the only issue, it
was always just semi-finals. But then they were playing a lot more round-robin games, weren't they?
Well, when they went to 14 teams especially, you'd have teams who would finish with 7 wins, a draw, and 5 losses. They'd finish maybe even 8-5, which is a good record, but they'd still miss out. Like, in 2009, I remember it really well, the Crusaders were 8-1-4. But because they had a lot of bonus points, they managed to finish 4th ahead of the Waratahs and the Sharks, who were both 9-4. So 9 wins, 4 losses, but they missed out in the semis,
right?
Which doesn't feel right.
And these days you can make the playoffs winning 5 games, or in the Crusaders' case, it might even be 4 games. 4 games. Next! What is more chance of happening? Talking to Harry Plummer there. The Blues take it all out. The Blues win Super Rugby, or the Crusaders make the finals. What is more chance of happening out of those two?
The Blues win Super Rugby or the Crusaders make the finals. Oh, gosh. Both of them, a lot needs to happen.
Well, no, for the Crusaders, the Druids just have to lose to the Rebels.
Are they going to lose to the Rebels? I'll tell you what, the Rebels sizing up and actually playing really well this week wouldn't shock me.
They're going to respond in one or 2 ways, aren't they? They're going to get off the plane and go, what the hell are we doing here? What the hell's the point? Even though they will have a finals match next weekend regardless of the result. Or they're going to go, stuff you, Rugby Australia, and we're going to go out there, get really tight as a group, get really internal about this, and we're going to go and do something that no one actually expects us to do, which is to win in Fiji.
I'd like to think that one will happen. I'd like to think.
Well, what is more chance happening? Blues win it or Crusaders make the finals?
Actually, by the way, no, they can. I would say the Crusaders making the finals, because the Blues to win it all would probably have to finish top, and then they'd have to win 3 straight finals matches, which they can do, but that involves using my
You don't
logic.
think that they can win away from Eden Park? Or that they just don't get...
If they're going to play away from Eden Park, it probably means they'll have to play in Canberra, which is not an easy place to win, against away to the Canes, who are damn good at the moment, or away to the Chiefs. They could beat the Chiefs away, but a lot would have to happen for the Chiefs to get into a position where they host a semi.
Interesting listening to Harry Plummer there, and he's very humble about it, that they...
Actually, the Chiefs can't host a semi. The Chiefs are finishing 4th no matter what. They could finish 3rd, but yeah.
He's sitting there and he's very adamant that they've done nothing and won nothing. I mean, I really like hearing that attitude from them, because Adrian Choate said pretty much the similar stuff to us last week, didn't he? That they know. That it doesn't matter how many games they win in the round robin, they're very aware. And he said, and Harry Plummer did, and you can go back and listen to that interview, Harry Plummer said, going down to Christchurch and playing as a Blues player, you know what's coming. And over the last couple of seasons, what have the Crusaders done to them, apart from poleaxe them last year and then upset them in the final the previous year to that, and so have won the games that have mattered most?
Yeah.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.